What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Beyond the Beret, where we find guys that's done amazing things. We share their stories in hope of helping you guys out there, the new generation, hopefully avoid the same pitfalls that they went through, right? Today I have Trevor Beeman, right? I met Trevor initially in 2010, I think it was, at the B-Doc, where we served together briefly before we went our separate ways and started doing work with our third group, right? So I wanted him to come on, guys, because he has a story that he has to tell or he wants to tell, and I'm hoping that you guys get something out of it, right? So with all that said, Trevor, it's been a while, man. Welcome to the show. Yeah. We'll start from the beginning, man. Why don't you just do a quick intro and let people know who you are, where you come from, upbringing, and then we'll jump right into your story.
All right. Well, Jay, thanks for having me.
Of course,
it's nice
man.
to be in North Carolina for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was born in South Bend, Indiana. And I lived there until about third grade.
Yeah.
When my mom got remarried and I moved to the suburbs of northern Chicago.
Gotcha.
I grew up in a poor area that there was a lot of gangs and drugs. I was beat into Latin Kings when I was like in fifth grade.
Yeah.
And
Wait, you Latin Kings?
Yeah.
Isn't that like an all Hispanic gang?
Yeah, but where I was is predominantly white.
Yeah.
Mixed in with Hispanics, and it just was part of the crew.
Gotcha.
Clique, or whatever. The people that we hung out with were all
Gotcha.
involved in it. So
I got
so that was growing up there, and I ended up staying there until I went to Purdue. In the January of '99, I graduated high school early because of the stuff that was happened to me as a kid. That the high school wanted me to get out early.
Gotcha.
And so I kind of was able to. They're like, "We just figure your grades out." My high school GPA is probably like a 2.4.
Yeah.
Not very successful. The things that at a young age that I found that I knew worked for me was I could work hard and show up.
Yeah.
And I worked at a hospital while I was in high school and made quite a bit of money, where I was essentially able to kind of take care of myself. And my parents couldn't tell me shit.
Yeah.
And so I could buy my own car, had paid for my own car insurance. All of it was out of my pocket. And I was like, so that kind of started I know that if I work hard enough for something, I can get it.
Yeah.
And it started at a young age,
Gotcha.
even though all this other sexual abuse from my stepfather was happening.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, because there seems to be like a theme, like majority of the folks that I interview that, of course, we know, right, as just SF guys, once you dig into their stories, we're like, hey, man, where'd you come from? There's a consistent thing of, hey, we all come from humble beginnings, is what they say. I'm like, dude, that's just a nice way of saying we all were poor as shit, right? So I don't know what it is, but it's like that prepares us for this life of not only in the military, but in special operations.
I think that knowing that is a precursor to from some next follow-on things, to go to selection, to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
Who that mission set that we do, what type of person you have.
Gotcha.
That's going to go into SOF or Ranger Regiment or anything like that. There's a certain breed of person that they get that come from hard times. Yeah.
And it's all like it's always, hey, whether it's being poor or whether it's gang life or experiencing adversity, I feel like it all at an early age pretty much starts to program us for what hardship looks like, whether it's a selection or deploying and taking lives and all of that shit. So
right. So one of the behavioral health things is like the adverse childhood experiences.
Yes.
Like, so if you have one of those 10 things, like for me, I think I have like 8. So it's like, as those start to add up and you don't really screw over your life, and you start to see guys who tend to lean towards the military, I bet you'd be start clicking them off. Like, these guys all have these experiences in their life. And it's like, we don't want to say we want the hard people but it takes hard men to go do hard things.
Yes, I agree 100%.
And so we don't want to be like, we don't want you, but we also aren't going to say we really need you. Mm-hmm. Or kind of just be like, well, we'll have a selection process. And then we'll just be like, the process of selection says that this type of person is what we need. Yeah. And you kind of already know what it is, right?
You're just doing it to make yourself feel good. Yeah. Now you mentioned, and again, we don't have to go into this because I want folks to go watch the TED Talk that you did not too long ago that I saw. You mentioned the sexual assault aspect of it. And I think it takes a big person to admit that, especially the breed of men that we are, right? So when did you get to the point where you decided to start sharing that story, and how hard was it to overcome the stigma, you know what I mean, that came with that?
So sharing the story of it isn't hard. Mm-hmm. There's some other things that is harder that took me much longer to be able to talk about. Yeah. But when it happened, it was fine to talk about. I went to college, and I had to prosecute him and go on stand, and I had to tell my friends that that's what I was going to do. Yeah. So talking about it wasn't that big a deal. In the military, I kind of, from 2000 to 2014, I kind of just kept it in. Yeah. And I kind of used it as fuel, and didn't really go to behavioral health or anything like that. It's after my 5th combat deployment where I was like, something's not right. Yeah. And I started going to behavioral health, and like in closed sessions is where I start talking about what's going on. Gotcha. So the harder part that I had to deal with and be more honest about is that there was times where I wanted it to happen, and I enjoyed it. Yeah. Those two things were the hardest things to be able to tell my team room or anyone else. Yeah. Because everyone sees that it's like, it's just this awful thing. But as an 8-year-old, when someone like have a biological response, understanding why my brain wanted that to happen and why my body wanted it to happen took me until I was in my late 30s. Yeah. And that's where I think the biggest breakthrough for me in getting better is that it wasn't really my choice. Yeah. So that's kind of where it was okay to talk about, like, hey, yeah, I was just sexually abused as a kid. Not a big problem to say. But now to go in deeper about how my brain and my body felt was completely different and much harder to do. Gotcha. And like I said, guys, I will put the link to his TED Talk in the description so you guys can go check it out, because I think it's a pretty powerful story that Trevor tells, all right? So go check it out. Let him know you guys came from this channel, and then we'll go from there. All right, so now we'll jump right back into the story. So you go to Purdue. Yep. Now, did you do all 4 years, or what made you, I guess, want to join the military from college? More life problems happened, right? As you can imagine. Yeah. So I start in the May of 1999. I started. Yeah, you're good. May of 1999, I started actually fully attending school at Purdue, but in the fall semester of 2000, the girl I was dating got pregnant. Okay. And I was like, I have to do the right thing. So there's this pressure on me to be a man, to do the right thing. And also I feel as if like I need to find something that will give me some type of purpose that's beyond school. And also, like what I talk about having an honorable death, like there was a lot of depression and suicidal thoughts that I was having, and I thought that being in the Army would kind of maybe happen, but obviously this is before 9/11. Yeah, no idea that's going to happen. So I'm like 1.5 semesters into school, and I basically drop out to join the Army. So I went into a recruiter's office, and I'm the recruiter's dream. I just want to join the Army. I don't care what it is. I just like, I want to go. So this is where talent management and this is really important to know, is that the recruiter did not see who I was.
Yeah.
And the recruiter who talked to me was recruiting for the reserves, which is typically no combat arms.
Yeah.
And they're like, we want you to be a low density MOS so that we can fill things. This is before I know anything about filling billets and getting numbers and things like that. So I sign up to be a 91 Mike, which is a hospital food service dietetic.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. So I work in a hospital.
Okay.
Like I was in high school feeding patients.
I gotcha.
Okay. I'm like, all right, I know this job. I did it. It's not going to be hard. So sure, I'll go do that.
Yeah.
And so things I didn't know. I didn't know I was going to get a GI Bill. I had no idea until I get back to school. Yeah. I just had to sign up in the reserves to get it. Awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to have to go to 92 Golf Cook School at Fort Lee either, as a prerequisite to go to Fort Sam Houston to get the secondary MOS. So I was in a delayed entry program, and so I signed up in December of 2000, and I went to Fort Jackson in April of 2001.
Gotcha.
So that's the start of this.
Now,
this stuff it's a great story. The way this all works out.
Yeah. Now at this point, prior to joining the military, of course, like you mentioned, we have responsibilities regardless of what's going on around us. Because I say the same thing to my younger brothers. There's like 8 of us, man, and we all, minus me, at one point in time, got somebody pregnant prior to getting married, right? So I tell them the same thing. Hey, it's not about you anymore, right? It's about that child that's on the way and your responsibilities. Now, in joining the military, like you mentioned earlier, you were your own man, essentially. Did you talk to anybody else, like friends, family members, your girlfriend at the time, or did you just send it?
So my grandfather on my mom's side was in World War II. He fought in Germany. He received 2 Purple Hearts, but he had passed away before I decided to join the Army. Yeah. My dad was in the Air Force, and his father was also in the military and had retired. So there was a little bit in my lineage and my family, but it wasn't really talked about.
Gotcha.
At this point, I really didn't reach out to anybody in my family. I just made a decision one day and said, like, you can either talk about it or you can be about it.
Gotcha.
And I just went, and this is what I need to do, and I think this is the best path.
Gotcha.
For me at this point
Clearly
in my life.
So how was basic training itself for you? Because here you are from Chicago.
Yeah.
Now you're going into the Army and you're dealing with a bunch of different stuff. Yeah. How was that initial, entry into basic training, dealing with the drill sergeant, dealing with other people? You know what I mean? How was that?
So I looked at that as a process in people's jobs. They have a purpose for why they act a certain way, because to have 4 platoons and be able to move those people from place to place, that has to be structured in a manner that makes sense. They're educating people on doing something that's extremely violent, and it has to be a certain way. Yes, there's a brainwashing part of joining the military that happens, which I think is very significant as I went 20 years later on reflection about how my mind views the world. It starts back then, because the thing that happens there that needs to be recognized is that you get okay with the idea of killing people. And that's not okay after you get out. After we're out of the Army, that it's not okay to do that for a living anymore. And so that's...
But that feeling doesn't go away.
Right. So then it's like, so what are we doing? So that goes, well, I mean, that's fast forward 20 years later, where we can focus that on as we get there. But that's the beginning of, like, the beginnings of how you might need to get help later on in life.
Yeah.
And recognize like you just went through something that's letting you believe that doing something very violent is permanent.
Yeah.
And it's almost okay.
Yeah.
And so I like the structure of getting up at a certain time, going and doing PT, going to eat breakfast, shower, next thing, training event. I loved marching. I loved the drill sergeants I had were phenomenal. Yeah. And they could sing cadence in a manner that I had never had, never seen. And I actually met my drill sergeant way years later. Yeah. But this black man was like the harmony and the way he could sing, the soul that it made me so proud to be in uniform. Yeah. And it was like, I was like, I want to be a part of this so much. Yeah. And I never seen that where I grew up. Yeah. And it's the power of a voice and how to be able to move people around and do drill and ceremony, things that we kind of put away to the side. But that discipline that you get from that, I think is still in us. Yeah, like deep in us. And some of us probably like, maybe we should focus on DNC a little bit. Because there's like you're in tune with each other a lot. Yeah. And so basic training wasn't necessarily difficult or hard. It was just passing time. Yeah. And it's not easy. I don't think it's, if you go to Fort Benning, Sand Hill, or you go to Fort Leonard Wood, I don't think there's really anything like different. No. To me, it's all going to suck. Yeah. Right? But if you accept it that that's just the way the process is, from getting someone who has never spent a day in the military to now they can potentially go fight for America. Yeah. As a unit or a team, like they do a phenomenal job. They do. And Americans are way better receivers of instruction than anywhere else I've ever seen in the world. And
we've been a lot of places and worked with a lot of different military. By far, we are that structure's there for a reason, and it works, right? So that's amazing. So you get done with basic AIT. Yeah. What's next? Like you go to a unit, you start doing that job. Like what's next for you?
So when I left Fort Jackson and I went to Fort Lee, at Cook School, I realized I'm in the wrong place. This Ranger stuff, I didn't know anything about any of that. I didn't really do any research about different things that are out there. I just thought the guy that I went to talk to would say like, this is the best thing for you. Yeah. And I'm like, Rangers, airborne school, all this Green Beret business might fit better than where I'm currently at.
Yeah. Did you know anything about that at the time?
No. All I see is songs about this stuff. I cadences and stuff. I'm like, why are there the R's for Ranger and stuff and blah blah. I'm like all the time, and I'm like I'm not fitting in with the people that are around me. Yeah. At all. And that's I kind of noticed after basic training at AIT. Go to Fort Sam. I finished that stuff. And then I go back to Indianapolis where I'm in a medical unit there. And I go back to school. So I go back to Purdue and I go back to school and I use the GI Bill the whole time I go back. January 2003, I get called up to go to Iraq. The whole unit mobilizes. We go to Fort Stewart, and I was there, Fort Stewart, Fort Gordon, for approximately 3 months. Yeah. To do a train up. I watched all the bombs hit Baghdad. Yeah. And at Fort Stewart, it was a party. Yeah. It was insane.
Celebration.
Running in the chow hall watching bombs hit Baghdad and people are going crazy. And I'm like, it's real. Yeah.
Because you went in as a reservist.
Right. Gotcha. And so I got called up and they said, we don't need your MOS. No one's getting field care in either Kuwait or in the Green Zone in Iraq. And so everyone's getting pushed to Landstuhl in Germany. So we're going to send you home. And so at that point, when I got back home to Indiana, I told my company commander, and I was like, and the first sergeant, I was like, I'll never get called up again and not go.
Yeah.
And so I go back to Purdue, and there was the National Guard recruiter there. And they're like, we need a 92 Golf at this Lurch D unit. And I'm like, yes.
Send me.
So I transferred from the reserves to go into the Guard. Mm-hmm. And since I had the 92 Golf, I'm a West identifier, I filled a billet in the 151st Long Range Surveillance Detachment.
Nice.
It's the only National Guard LURS unit that went to Vietnam.
Nice.
So there's huge history, huge lineage that ends up, the Butler Center at Pre-Ranger becomes, he was from our unit. And I'm like, so I hear people still say his name. Like, this guy was the glider, like paratrooper kind of thing. So I end up getting there, I don't know, let's just say easy, like May of 2004, and then we get called up to go to Afghanistan June-ish, and we leave in July.
Nice.
Just all right. So I was in school. I dropped out of school to go on this deployment, and so originally I wasn't slated to go, but I showed up at the armory because I messed up a date.
Yeah.
And the company commander, his name's Sean Eakin, an amazing leader. He was like, "Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely."
Yeah.
Like, we're only bringing 11 Bravos. I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'm here."
Mm-hmm.
Like, he told me to be here. I'm here today. And I was like, "Well, I messed up the dates, whatever." And so we go down to Camp Atterbury. It's in central Indiana, and we do our MOB train up, and then I go to Camp Robinson in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I go through, it's a National Guard, 11 Bravo like course. And so that's where I get my 11 Bravo infantry identifier, which is awesome. I think the training's probably better than at Fort Benning, but that's just my perception of being there. And then we deploy.
Nice.
And so they left someone else that wasn't necessarily serious of going.
Yeah.
And then I spent 12 months in Afghanistan.
What part of Afghanistan was it?
So, 2 parts. One's in Kabul for half the time, and the next part is down in Kandahar.
Gotcha.
And this is where the dream of becoming a Green Beret begins.
Now, leading up to this point, is, I guess, the military, everything that you envisioned between enlisting, getting to go down to combat? Like, were you... did you have purpose at this point? Did you know exactly where your life was going, or did it just kind of happen as it happened?
I think after going to Fort Stewart and the invasion of Iraq, I think I started to see that this is what I needed to do and needed to be a part of my life. And I was more committed there. As pulling out of the reserves and going into the National Guard, there was the like-minded people there that it started to make sense what we were doing to me. And I was around a group of men that had been in Somalia, who had gone to the Gulf War, had been in Ranger Battalion, and this was their life. And it was not just going for 2 days, it was every day as you're an airborne ranger.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, these are the people I need to be around.
Gotcha.
And so drilling with that, I was like, I was the cook and all, but then it comes to like, we deploy as like a company. We didn't like do LURS missions when we were deployed, so we didn't really do that. We were just like QRF for different things, and we end up being A&A pay missions in Kandahar, where I get to go to Camp Price. Yeah. And then,
dude, it's so funny because I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you. I'm like, man, I know Trevor. You dive school, like you did all this hardcore shit over third group. And I'm like, wait a minute, you were a cook?
Yeah. Hey, it happens. You got to start somewhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But that's understanding your own potential though, and seeing that where you're at is maybe not the fit that you have, and have enough courage to find the thing that's right for you.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't have to stay where I'm currently at. that I'll be a little bit vulnerable and put my neck out there and see if there's something else that
Yeah.
I might fit better for who I am.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Because I always say, like, you can, like, when I do my mentorship calls, I'm like, dude, like, it's being SF or being, I guess, doing the job that we do. It's almost like a calling, right? Because a lot of guys will tell me, yeah, I want to do this and I'm trying to put it off, but I can't stop thinking about it. It's the same concept because I didn't know shit about SF or any of that stuff either. I was combat engineer, but then once I found out about it, I just kind of went towards it, and I wasn't able to get it out of my mind. So I would almost say it's the same concept. So let's talk about how you got introduced to the Green Beret aspect of it. I know a lot of guys have stories about them seeing a SF guy and talking to that guy, and that's how it all started.
Yeah.
Where did it start for you?
All right. So we were in Kandahar, and we were just living in GP meetings before any of that stuff blew up to whatever it was as we started to leave. But when I was there, Camp Brown was across the street from the PX there. And then there's a Robin Williams show that I got to see, and he makes fun of the Green Berets and stuff that are on top of Camp Brown there. So there's a little exposure there. I played volleyball growing up, and they had sand volleyball there, and I played volleyball with the 7th group guys that were on that rotation.
Nice.
And so I spent time asking them about what they were doing. They were on reverse cycle. I'm like, I don't understand what that means.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, yeah, we go do hits in the middle of the night. I'm like, all right. I go to Spin Boldak to pay the French commandos, which is on the border of Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I see how they're living. And I'm like, okay, this is a different way of being here than how I am.
Was it still, Mullah Omar's compound down the Spin?
Yeah. And so they're living life a little differently than what I'd been seeing in my own, like, camp or my own tent, right? So they have a little bit more flexibility on lifestyle. And then we go to up by Tiger 2, up to Arghandab, to Camp Tice, and we pick up, I think it's an OGA guy, but he's a Ranger Hall of Famer. And they're like, we got to bring him back with us. He needs a ride. And so I'm like, okay. So we go there. I'm like, this is another outskirts fire base in the middle of nowhere. And we were with the Gurkhas, and they just had, this is at this time, this is all light skinned vehicles. There's not a lot of IEDs in Iraq or in Afghanistan at this time. And so it wasn't any big deal. We just, there was nothing happened. It was like this lull in Afghanistan the year I was there. But I got to go to some really cool places. But the real impact was when I went into Lashkar Gah, or northern Lashkar Gah, where right off Route 1 there is Camp Price. And I actually got to sit down in a team room with Green Berets, and this was the place I needed to be.
Yeah. You remember which group it was?
No, I don't. I know it's the 7th group guys were, it's sort of south at the time. I have no idea.
Probably a 7 group team then.
Yeah, but I don't know. No idea.
Gotcha.
But I mean, if I know enough guys, it could have been like, it had to be after, obviously, Bruce Price dying. So he's a 3rd group guy.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. But I just saw their vehicles, the things, how they lived, how they had the A&A there with them. And I was like, this is where I want to be. And so I took a lot of that experience back home with me. And I was like, I want to focus on why people in the Middle East live the way they do. So I'm a history major in school, so I focused on the Middle East my last 3 semesters. So I was in ROTC while I was going to school, and they wanted me to be a contract cadet for 4 more semesters after I got back from Afghanistan. I only had 3 semesters left.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm 26 years old. I can't spend another semester in school. So it ends up taking me 7 years to get my 4 years in
Yeah.
because I joined the Army. I
Gotcha.
just kept going back. I was offered multiple times to go to Ranger School and stuff, and I was just at that point in my life, I felt finishing school was more important to then go into Ranger School. And especially after going to Afghanistan for a year, I was like, I don't know what value I have by going there. So I continuously, for my whole career, I'm never going. Especially after the experiences when I get to group.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing they're going to teach me.
Yeah. You and I both.
No. So then I get a conditional release from the Guard.
Okay.
And I sign as an 18 X-ray contract.
Gotcha.
So, and then I go to MEPS. Super learning point here. You don't have to accept anything.
Yes.
They tell you. They told me I was an E5 paratrooper at the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, there's only one billet at Fort Wainwright, Alaska, for you to go to. And I was like, well, here's the USAREC paperwork for me to say that I can be an 18 X-ray. And I was like, well, until your computer tells me
otherwise, no.
I'll call me when it comes up. And so I left, went outside, and some civilian comes up and tells me, like, this is not how NCOs act in the Army. And I was like, well, it's my life.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's going to have to do that. I'm like, I am not trying to go from Alaska to Fort Bragg to figure out how to go to SFAS.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And so they're like, and I walked back in and ta-da.
It's funny how
I was on a plane to 30th AG and go to Sand Hill, and I get there, and the first sergeant at 30th AG is like, you don't need to go. They're at a CIB and airborne, we say you're not going there.
Yeah.
And then the SF recruiters there, that's Jeremy Hudall and Philip Panagos.
Yeah.
We're working at there at that time in 2007, and I just trained with those guys.
Nice.
And for 2 or 3 months, and then we went to Fort Bragg to start the madness.
the awesomeness. So, and I think it's important because, one, like, I don't hate recruiters. I just know what they do, right? So every time I speak to some of these younger guys, because they don't know what they don't know, just like you and I didn't know what we didn't know when we went through.
Yeah.
And recruiters know this. They go to school to learn how to do this shit. So that's why I tell the guys, I'm like, hey, you go to the recruiter with an intent and you tell them this is what I want. If they can't give you that, hey, thank you for your time and your service. Get up and go find another one. Like, you have to be very intentional.
I would write your intent down.
Yeah.
And put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
And be like, I came here for this today.
Yeah.
If that's not what you're there for, walk away.
Yeah.
It is your life, and they do not care about you.
Exactly.
You live. You're going to have to live with that your decision for potentially a significantly long time.
Yeah.
And if that's not what you're truly invested in, don't do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And I think it also gives the Army a bad name because some of these kids get stuck in jobs that they don't want. They go to whatever duty station, they're miserable, they start doing dumb stuff, and now they get kicked out or they leave and they have a bad taste in their mouths, as opposed to if I'm trying to be a soldier and I come to you and I tell you, hey, I want to be an 11 Bravo, then why are you going to convince me to go be a freaking cook or something else, right? Yeah. Just give me what I want.
It's one, they're being told certain MOSs need to be recruited. Yeah. But then if people are like, if I become a cook, they have a signing bonus of $50,000. Yeah. Where 11 Bravo doesn't. Yeah. That just means that 11 Bravo is over strength. Yeah. And this is not, and so they're trying to get people in that job. Like, that amount of money is not worth it. No. It's not. It's the misery that you will hold in you for making that decision. No amount of money will be able to bring that time back to being the thing that you truly, the fire inside you is driving you to, won't matter. Because all of us will say, I'll do this job for free. Yeah. If you send me back and give me 60 Afghans again, I will do it for free.
Yeah, fuck the money.
I don't need money to do this job. As long as I have enough money to buy the wood, to be able to do the things I need to do on this camp to keep us alive, that's it. Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Keep the bullets coming out of the sky. Like, I never need to see anybody ever again.
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
All right, so now you get to Fort Bragg. At this point, did you know exactly what you were getting yourself into as far as what Green Berets do? And because again, you had a little bit of exposure, so you 100% now you know exactly what you were going to be getting yourself into.
I think I did a little bit of research and history behind it, reading like how to get selected, and there was another mindfulness book that I read about, and they talked about just different things that guys were doing.
Gotcha.
And been in the past of that, and learning, about Nick Rowe and reading about all that stuff, and seeing like what Green Berets did in Vietnam, and like that's where I start to see like that's what I want to be. I knew I wasn't like a DA guy. Yeah. I'm not a CQB person.
I'm sure you are now.
No, I'm not. I'm still not. I do not like it. Yeah. It's too much time. Yeah. To get good at. After being in Afghanistan, after my first trip, I wanted to empower the Afghan people to fight for themselves. And being a Green Beret allowed that to happen. Yeah.
So you like the unconventional side of it more so than the DA and some of the sexy stuff.
Yeah. I think it's the total opposite. Yeah. I think of living in a checkpoint or with Afghans is the sexy part, and taking them and going and prosecuting and persecuting people for their fucking wrongdoings.
Like the VSO aspect of it.
I love it. I love the VSO where I'm out and I build my own fighting force. Yeah. And we create white areas and create safe places for kids to live. Yeah. And like that is what I was like, to me, that what I was born to do. Yeah. Is to empower other people to fight for themselves. Yeah. And that's what I got to do. And it breaks my heart right now. Like in the regiment, I feel like it's getting a little lost. Where guys might have wanted to join to go fight in combat with foreigners, and they don't get to have the opportunity.
Yeah. No, it's all the sexy stuff, right? So now let's hit selection real quick. So now you get to Fort Bragg. As an X-ray, you do SOP-C, and now you get ready to go into selection and stuff. Now, were you ready for selection? Did you know what to expect, or was it just a kick in the nuts? Like?
I mean, just from the book that I read, and then obviously all of the, private news network of the barracks, of what goes on, the guys that would come back and stuff. So, and then I think the biggest help during SOP-C 1 is the amount of time we rucked around Camp McCall. And I just didn't put my head down and just walk or run or whatever that we had to do. Like, I looked around and saw the terrain. And so in going into selection and team week, and we're like, we got to move from Luzon to here, like, where it's all at. Yeah. And so it's easy. There's no anxiety. Yeah. I got to take this route. I got to do this thing. Like, okay. Walk in the woods at night during land nav, like they show you the whole Hoffman training area. Yeah,
SOP-C definitely does a good job at preparing you guys for that.
And so even into selection, like I was like, I'm gonna run the same speed, I'm gonna ruck the same speed. I am going to perform how I can perform. Yeah, to the best of my ability. Yeah, no one else. Selection is totally you. Until you get to team week in a way. But until that time, until you're in a group, it's all of self-evaluation. Yeah. It's on your own head, and it's what do you do with your own time? Yeah. And does it crush you that you are all alone? Or can you amuse yourself, think about things, self-reflect on life? And that's what I did. I didn't care if it was raining or if I was completely wet. I just thought about my life and the things that I'd been through, and it kind of is like my time to heal and reflect on the things that I've been through as a kid. And that's what I kind of just did, and just kind of made sense of it. To walk 10 clicks. Yeah. Like, okay, like it's, and so I didn't I never ran or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just, so like the prep before I came on active duty, it's just, I just took load for time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to walk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I don't care the distance. I'm just going to, I need to have this weight on my shoulders to prepare my for it. And that's
Gotcha.
it. It's just time. It just need to be able to walk for time. Learn how to take care of your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that the time that you have after the events, it's, maintenance of your body, cleaning your clothes, feeding your body, and doing those preventive maintenance things
Mm-hmm.
before sleeping.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
You got to take care of everything else. Pack your ruck, make it look good, fill up all your water, be prepared and leave at a moment's notice. So it starts so you start prepping, right? The same way that we would start to prep, like we go out on a mission. Like, I have to go through all my gear, all my radios. I have to go inspect everything, make sure it's prepped, and then I can go do what I need to take care of on me. So if they're like, hey, you got 5 minutes to get your ruck ready to go on a ruck run or something or like that, like your stuff's ready.
Done. Yeah.
It already weighs the right amount. Everything, like, there's nothing that I need to work on.
Gotcha. So what would you say was the most challenging part of selection for you?
People that weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah. Now, did you voice your opinion, or was it one of those things?
I wasn't a person who during team week that would deliberately leave people behind.
Yeah.
What I did was make it look so that they didn't help.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other boys were carrying all the weight on their back, ammo cans, water cans. I would just say, I need you just to get to the end.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave you behind.
Yeah.
You're going to come with us, but this isn't probably for you.
Yeah. Like, we'll carry this. You just carry yourself to
you
the
just
end.
need to get to that. And that's how I didn't want to be like, tell the guys, like, leave this person.
Yeah.
We're going to walk faster than this person can walk. I don't think that's a smart thing to do to somebody.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Like, that's like demeaning and things like that. But are you going to just say, like, I need you to do as best as you can to stay with us?
But we still
we have to do other things.
Yeah.
The rest of us will carry all the weight just so you can get to the end.
Yeah.
And you need to do some self-reflection on this, if this is your choice, you need to be here. They're the cadre that are there specific to do something.
Yeah.
They're evaluating you to see how you react or don't act to things. You have to, in my view, is just don't allow whatever that person says or doesn't say to mean anything.
Yeah.
Your team is what matters.
Yep.
That is it. Nothing else around you matters at all. Be as true as you can be. Who you are as a person, you should show it.
Yeah.
All of it, 100% of it should shine.
Yeah.
Because the evaluator can see through it.
Yeah.
All of the bullshit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's not what anybody wants to see.
Yeah, like the Spotlight Rangers and all of that shit. They always do too. So now, do you remember how many guys you started selection with, and how many actually made it to the end?
I was thinking about this, and I think it was like 380, and 77 of us got selected.
Yeah.
And that was September of 2007.
Gotcha.
And I turned 27 at selection.
Gotcha.
Like the day I got selected, it was my birthday.
Yeah.
It was a reverse cycle, all at night. And I would say 50 of us were X-rays.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And the rest were officers, is what it seemed like.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what it was. And some really cool, really amazing guys were in we had a significantly amazing team week team.
Yeah.
That there was 2 guys that ended up going to PSYOPs, but I was like, you don't need to be here. All of us got selected.
Nice.
And out of all those guys, they all became Green Berets.
That's awesome.
And they, like, Ryan Kelly, Brian Santos, who else? Matt Daniels,
Yeah.
Mike Heiser, all of us.
Yeah.
This insane.
Yeah.
And then Brian Santos becomes my team leader in 4th Battalion.
That's awesome.
Right? And the crazier than even like how, so to go back to college, this guy Justin Grant is a green to gold tanker, and while he's at school with me, he goes to dive school. He gets his bubble, comes back to school. He graduates and goes and he's a field artillery officer. He goes through the Q course, and he's my very first team leader I walk into.
That's awesome.
So for anyone to tell you that going to dive school as a cadet, you'll never be a Green Beret, or you'll never be a team leader is false.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to know someone from back in 2003, and then it's 2010.
Yeah.
And you're this. What are you doing here?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, those things happen. Like, why is that important? So, who you are as a person carries on for eternity.
Yeah. Because it would have been one of those things. You walk into the team room, and if you were a dirtbag in 2003, you would have been like, God, hey, team song, get this fucking dude out of my team room.
So it's true. So your reputation and how you act on every single school you go through, even if it's a small little thing, everyone remembers.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not, if you stay true to yourself, you're honest to other people about who you are, like, they will never go wrong.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Pull your weight like everyone else is, and don't fuck over other people.
Yeah.
And you'll be okay.
Yeah, you reap what you sow. That's actually awesome advice to give to these dudes. So you get selected. Did you get a chance to choose the MOS that you wanted and language?
Yeah.
Or were those chosen for you?
So I did really bad on the D-Lab.
Yeah, I think we all did.
And I have, like, I want to call it learning disability and stuff like that. I knew that this would probably be the hardest part of the Q course for me.
Yeah.
So I weighed out the MOSs, and I said, I took anatomy and physiology in college and didn't do well. So I'm like, being a Delta is not going to work for me. Being an 18 Charlie, I was like, there's no after the Army job.
Yeah.
That, unless you have a family name and you're from Pennsylvania to blow up, coal mines and stuff like that, probably not going to go into that business.
Yeah.
And guns, I was like, not great.
Yeah.
I don't know. So to me, looking at becoming special forces communicator made the most sense of post-Army and jobs that mattered the most to me.
Gotcha. That's a good way of looking at it.
The only problem the only problem with being an 18 Echo is that you can be tested at every phase of everything you go through.
Yeah.
Because you can't blow up things everywhere, you can't shoot everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can't always do medicine.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, it's the worst. And so that is, goes into Robin Sage, where like, these guys aren't doing anything, but I have to actually do stuff.
Yeah. You gotta be calm.
It actually has to work. It's just not set up a range fan and like, well, I think this is with the 240 will shoot all day. You never even have to do anything.
Yeah, you never actually shoot.
Blank rounds. And they're like, what? Okay.
But if you don't make comms, everybody knows.
Yeah, so I wish I could actually see that matrix of what they evaluated me on. Where it says like how they figured out how they selected you.
Yeah.
I know I saw it, and like this is how we figure who but
like I saw a diagram through the pitch, like through the backside. I didn't actually get to see it.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was nice in SOPSI that we took all those psychological tests and stuff versus being tired and stuff like that. So that's a huge advantage that guys get.
Yeah.
There. So I got what I wanted. And I wanted to go to third group, especially because Africa was something that at that point I felt I wanted to go and see and possibly impact.
Yeah.
Which I do get to do, but it's almost 10 years later.
Yeah. Now, going through the Q course, did you have any challenges, or do you have any advice for some of the guys that are getting ready to go through the Q course as far as how to stay on track? Because I always tell guys, just because you pass selection doesn't mean you're done. You're still being assessed.
Yeah.
Like literally for the rest of that year. Like you have an entire year of just being assessed, and you can't step on your crank. Do you have any challenges there? And what advice would you give anybody currently going through it before?
So the rest of the duration of the Q course, my hardest part is language school.
Yeah.
And so when we went through, I think we were still taking the DLPT 5.
Oh, okay.
And it was awful. The test is extremely hard.
What language?
French.
Okay.
And I was like, I did the 4 months, and then I did another month, and Sergeant Major Bobby Cinco was like, I'm not going to throw you out of the Q course because of the test.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I was like, I try. Like, I show up, I try to learn this as best as I can.
Yeah.
So I get recycled.
Yeah.
And have to do language again, which is awful. It was
So
a long 11 months of my life because I had fine. But then the OPI comes online.
Yeah.
And it's not so hard.
Yeah.
The way that test goes is very
coach. It's like you get coached through it. Yeah.
It's easy to memorize what you have to say and not actually know any of the language. There's some kind of I don't really think that that's a great way to teach languages.
Yeah. Just
to get guys through. But I'm not in charge of the language school.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the way I look at it is like, shit, if you can speak it, then like you don't necessarily have to read it, but as long as you could speak it, because majority of the time we go down range, like we're speaking, we're not reading to anybody. You know what I mean? So
my advice is show up on time, clean your barracks room if you're living in the barracks, make everything look nice. Don't have anything in your room that could potentially get you kicked out of the Q course. Either it's empty beer cans or a dirty place or anything like that. There's no reason you should be called out of training because of your barracks room. Yeah. Or any type of medical, any type of things that are like on your record that you need to take care of. If they say you have to go to get a passport, like go do it. Do everything you have to do to stay off any of the hit lists. Yeah. To stay anything. Like being a gray man at this point is okay. Through language school, through MOS phase. Like until Robin Sage happens, until you're at Camp McCall, like just do the things that need to be done. Yeah. Take leave, go do things, be smart, don't get in trouble, don't get DUIs, like all the normal things. Like just be a good human being. Treat your peers like you'd want to be treated, and you're going to be just fine.
All the basic soldier stuff.
Follow the Army rules that are in place, the black and white that are there, and you will be fine. Yeah. It's and then at training, like don't stop rucking and running after selection. Yeah. You have to continue to do that because you're going to put on the language school 25. Yeah. It's stressful and it's hard. You're not doing as much, but you need to. This is where I think that how you build physical fitness into your life style starts at this point. This is where it becomes as a mindfulness tool that you can start saying like, I can start doing this for me. Yeah. And having time alone, and you start building that regiment, that routine that you will carry on throughout your whole career. And it starts there. This is a time where you're being evaluated on what you do with no supervision.
Gotcha. That's awesome advice. So now you graduate the Q course and you get the group. So did you go straight to the BDoc?
Yeah.
in 2010 where we met initially, or did you have a detour in one of the companies or any of that stuff?
No.
Yeah.
So I'm the only Echo who graduates. I was originally supposed to go to 3315 to go to the dive team.
Yeah.
Already set up.
Yeah.
The team sergeant already talked to me at graduation. Fine. I walk into group headquarters and it's late December, maybe early December 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Wright, the CSM, he's like, "What's wrong with us?" And I'm like, "I'm 18 Echo." He's like, "Great, I have a perfect job for you."
No, that's never a good thing.
I'm like, "Okay, you're going to deploy on 10 January." And I'm like, "Well, I'm getting married on the 19th of December. So I'm going to tell my wife that I'm leaving in 20 days after we get married." And so I left, we got married, and I went to Afghanistan and worked at the Siege of Sodef at Camp Vance for about 8-9 months. And at the time I was so mad. I was so mad that I fought for 2 years of my life to go on an ODA.
Yeah.
And this guy ripped it away from me.
Yeah.
But I made the best out of it I could possibly make.
Because I remember when, because I got there in May of 2010. I think you had already been there for a while.
Yeah.
And when I showed up, I remember I would, get with the first sergeant down there, and I would tell him like, "Hey, like, when can I get, like, I want to get in the fight. Like, when can I get to a group?" Because it was just a bunch of us just there.
Right.
Just to be there.
So it's Brandon Langford.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Denny Langford had taken over.
Yeah, so he was the first one when I was there. Because I replaced Brandon.
You're forced.
Yeah. I replaced Brandon because Brandon went and I think he came back and went to 4th Battalion.
Yeah.
So I backfilled him as like pay agent foo and was doing like the Camp Mayor stuff.
Yeah.
And then Langford was the first sergeant down there. You were down there along with a couple of support kids.
Yeah. So Jeff Wright, right, his influence mentorship through that time, I like hold on to me to this day.
Yeah.
So I got the group, and the first thing he says to me is that this place will never care about you, Trevor.
Yeah.
Unless you're on this wall of guys who die, no one cares.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you put 100 hours in or 40 hours a week in. When you leave this place, no one will care about you. And I kind of shrugged that off for a while, but then as I've gone in my career, it started to resonate more and more with me. But so while I'm in Afghanistan, I get to go to every VSP, VSO site in country. And I get to see how all the teams are living. Mm-hmm. And I get to sit in meetings about the way the war is going that I never knew about. Yeah. And things that were happening, cross-border operations, different types of strikes that I had no idea about. Yeah. And my eyes become even wider open because I get to travel around with General Miller and the kindest man that I've kind of known. But he would share a lot of his perspectives because he was in Somalia, in Ranger Regiment. He was a CAG operator. And he was the US 4A 4-star commander as the withdrawal happened. So significantly amazing human being that I flew probably 60,000 miles with him in the C-130 throughout Afghanistan in that time. And it was really amazing. Yeah. But what comes out of it that I don't see as bright as I know now is that I would talk to everyone I went to. And so I built these connections, this rapport with everywhere I went. And I start to know people. Yeah. And in our community,
Reputation is everything. Yeah.
your reputation,
I know
who
what
you
mean.
are matters, and who you know matters even more. For sure. And so being able to know sergeant majors, first sergeants, team sergeants, makes a difference.
Yeah.
Hands down. And so that impression that you have on people is lasting in a community that's very small.
Yeah.
And so I got to go to Qatar, and I got to see, commanders conferences and this stuff, and all the different fire bases. I get to see all the ticks happen. I get to see the guys that are in Barge Matal, that are all my friends that are in the B team, like Smith and these guys that had worked in the B-Doc that went there. I mean, they're in a 21-day gunfight. I'm watching it like, what is going on with these guys? I can't even imagine what it's like to see. Like, you watch the ISR, and I'm like, there's foreign fighters coming down the mountains.
Yeah.
Like, how are these guys going to make it out?
Yeah.
And then going places out west, and Bala Murghab, and the people are like, we're all going to die here.
Yeah.
And just see the fear in men's eyes. Like, none of us are making it home.
Yeah.
And Marcus Hawley, who was the S3 sergeant major at the time, he's like, y'all have more people than, because this was MARSOC guys, like, you have 15 more people than we have.
Yeah.
You're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Like, hold up, hit the brakes. So the battlefield circulations were really powerful to see how leadership should act and treat their ODAs. And there were some sergeant majors who wouldn't go see their teams for 6 months at a time. And Jeff Wright and Marcus Hawley were like, we can't stand for this.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. There's no way that I went to Fob Rob, and I was like, you're telling me you haven't came and seen your teams in 6 months? This is one of the worstest places in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so to start to see the care about guys that aren't around you, I start to see, like, that's what I think is what right
looks
from
like.
Jeff Wright saying this is what right looks like. It's like I'm starting to see it, even though I'm like so upset that I'm not there. I get that, just leave me here, please.
Yeah.
The whole political, strategic, that lens starts to grow because of that job, and the influence of the others, and being able to connect with that leadership. It's hands down the best thing that could have happened for my career, even though I hated it.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like,
you're missing all the fun, man.
like I'm like getting coffee for colonels and majors, and like whatever. But that's true. But you get to meet some really people, and so the worst part about it, I would say, is that we would go meet all the new team leaders and teams that came in the country, and then I would go to their funerals.
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. And I was like, all right. Like, and then I would watch all the con-ops. I'd go through all the con-ops, and I'd be like, who's going on level ones? That I know that are going to be in gunfights all night, and I'm just like hearing my friends get blown up, and so that's one part of it that's hard, is that you're just scared all the time for your friends. Yeah. And there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. And all you want to do is be there.
Yeah. So now you leave the B-Doc, and did you get a chance to choose the team that you were going to next, or did you use some of those
so
connections?
I choose to go to 3435.
3435. So that's in Charlie Company.
Yep.
No, 3435. So that's 4th Battalion.
Yep.
Gotcha.
4th Battalion, Charlie Company.
Because at that point, 4th Battalion was still like a regular line ODA. Right?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. So I'm like, I want to go to the dive team.
Okay.
Because Justin Grant's there.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Gotcha.
All right. So we come back. I go there. We have 3 echoes on the team, and there's short echoes throughout the company.
Yeah.
And the company sergeant major is like, I need you to go to 3-1.
Yeah.
Or go to 3-3. So I go to 3-3, and Ron Gillard's my team leader. He's awesome.
I went through the Q course
He's
with Gerard,
great.
man.
He's phenomenal.
He's a runner.
Yeah. And I've stayed in contact with him ever since.
Yeah.
But so I do that. We do some PMT stuff to go to Afghanistan. And then we come back from Germany. And they're like, well, we're going to get AJ Garcia, and who's another phenomenal human.
Yeah, because he backfilled you.
Yeah. And so he comes back and he wants to be on that team with those guys like Kevin Carey and some other folks. And so he had known them. And so the sergeant major's like, we can't leave the other Echo here.
Yeah.
Because he's not the greatest guy performance-wise, as a Green Beret, we'll say. And so then I go to 3-1, and we deploy to Western Afghanistan as the whole team, but we PSS and guys like that. It's like February of 2011, and we stay there in Kaki Safed which is northern Farah, until December of 2000. I stay there until I get home December 19th.
Gotcha.
I get home on my wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's horrible.
But
yeah.
And so that's how that happens, and we get to. So I bounce the team because of the manning structure. And I'm just like, I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah.
I'm going to just take what the guy upstairs is telling me I got to do. All right. I work with Devon Harris as the senior Echo, and another phenomenal Green Beret. And we have a pretty solid team.
Yeah.
Magnus Johnson's on that team. Becomes the founder of Elder Hart, who is now Mission 22.
Yeah.
So we did our time together.
Yeah.
And you can read more about that guy and all the stuff that we did. Significant.
Oh, I'm sure.
Lots of IEDs and things. George Hayden was on our team as the Charlie. He ends up going to 3rd Battalion afterwards, later on. Another phenomenal Green Beret. And I think I'm the last guy in the Army.
Yeah. Everybody's been out since.
Everyone's either on active duty. Either they're in, I think 2 guys maybe in the Guard, maybe 1. The rest of us are either medically retired or retired at this point.
Yeah. Now, looking at your career in 3rd Group, is there anything you would change or anything you would have done different from the point you got to a team to, I would say, the point that you are now?
I mean, if you would have asked me this question in 2011, I would have told you it's something different.
Yeah.
But the path that I ended up taking, I think, was perfect for me, because I was going to the dive team and then going to 3-1. I went to dive school after that's going to be my 3rd deployment to Afghanistan, and I fail. I fail pull-ups. I had some shoulder issues, but the real thing is that I went downtown in Key West and drank heavily for 3 days, and I was not ready to be there, and I needed to just get brought back to reality and kick down a notch, to say that if you don't prepare, you don't do the right things, you too can fail.
Yeah.
And so then I went back to 3-1. We deployed back to the same place again. 6 months later. And then we did another rotation. And I came back and went back to dive school and crushed it.
Yeah.
But I needed a failure in my life.
Yeah. How did you deal with that initial failure, though? Was it one of those things that, because you knew why you failed, but did it make it any easier, or was it still?
I think that the failure brought back the fire into performing again, and not like like touchable in a way.
Yeah.
With after gunfights and IEDs and stuff, it's just like you're on another level in your mind about what reality really is.
Yeah.
And how I like, you can't fuck with me. Like, like I'm the baddest person on this earth. You have no idea what I've been through and seen. Like this school ain't gonna be nothing.
Yeah.
And I needed that to come bring me back down and say like, you still gotta work hard, and you still gotta, you too can fail at things, as you know. You might have, language school, nobody like, you felt language school like that, okay, fine. Like going through SEER school, SUT, MOS, and Robin Sage without any problems, and then I'm like, oh, the same thing will happen. Nah, not so much. So I think there needs to be a not a rock bottom moment, but a time where you come back and say, I gotta try hard still.
Yeah.
I still gotta show up.
Yeah. You still gotta show up and perform. So now, because I know a lot of guys don't know how to deal with this, because our generation, we grew up during the war era, literally like two going on at the same time. I don't think in our history that's ever been a thing. Even as I'm thinking about it, Vietnam, all the world wars, it was one war in just different places, but to have two separate wars going on at the same time, we've learned so much. We've been through a lot. How did you cope with everything that was going on? And what advice would you give to the next generation of war fighters? Because there might not be any conflict going on right now, but best believe it's always lurking, right? So
there's good and bad advice.
Yeah.
Right, that has to be known. Right, so drinking is an acceptable means of dealing with problems in the military.
Yeah.
But being excessive and using that to black out and forget the past, you can't continue on with that, because you're not building any good coping mechanisms to deal with stress.
Yeah.
And so on my trips to Afghanistan, I started using opiates, and because there wasn't access to alcohol like it is so easy here in the States. So the use of opium, the use of synthetic heroin, essentially, is the what we have on the teams, and it just numbed. I used it all to numb everything. We would take Valium to go on patrol, and I would buy it off the local market, and I would just chew Valium all day.
Yeah.
And that is like being out in checkpoints by yourself as single Green Beret with 10 other uplift kids with 40 Afghans, and doing your own missions and stuff like that. It was just a lot, and doing that for 30 days at a time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was horrible.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But I was an E6. That rank doesn't. But I was 31 years old, and I'm fighting my own little war, and it's all on me.
Yeah.
And like everyone's looking at you. What are you going to do next?
Yeah.
And it's just the stress is real and heavy, and to think about like I have these young kids' lives in my hands.
Yeah.
Is hard.
Yeah.
Every day.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not a great coping mechanism to use, different types of drugs and alcohol. But for the time it worked.
Yeah.
But it's a trap.
Yeah.
And it's once those hooks are in your sides, you're gonna be on a very difficult journey to get them out of you.
Yeah.
And so you start believing that you can take care of yourself by self-medicating and trying to continue that same habit being back in the States, and it's just not possible.
Yeah.
At all.
Now, because I always tell guys, man, and that's one of the reasons why I started the channel, because I want these guys to be aware of what they're getting themselves into, right? Because they see the tab, they see the beret, and they're like, oh man, I want to be like that guy, or I want to go down that route. And I'm like, yes, that's what you see, but you don't see you don't see the demons, right? You don't see the other side of what this job will do to you. So I try to share and let them know, like, hey man, you're gonna go through some things that you need to be prepared for. You need to know how to come out on the other end, because if you don't, you can easily lose yourself in there, and permanently at that, right? So like I said, I'm glad to see that you came out of it all right. Now, as it comes to relationships, how did you figure that out? Because I got a divorce under my belt. I'm sure we know a lot of people that has this similar concept. But how did you manage not only your kids but also your relationships at the house?
So, how do I stay married? I made a conscious decision that I was going to tell my wife everything that I did.
Yeah.
Because I believed if she didn't know who I was going to grow into something that wasn't together.
Yeah.
And I would take my path and she would go on the path that she's living.
Yeah.
We didn't have any children during those like major deployments. And when my daughter was born, this is when my best team sergeant, Ben Tabber, said, I didn't get to see my girls grow up, and so you're going to fucking, you're going to go to work at HSC there because you deserve to be home with your kids.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I was like mad because they were going to go. They went to 1st Battalion. They all went to 3-5, and they all went to JBAD, and I stayed home.
Yeah.
So, and I started working. At that time, I started like working on myself and recognizing like something wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I just was honest with my wife about everything.
Yeah.
And we kind of grew together. I left her out of FRG. She didn't know where 3rd Group was. She had no idea where my team room was. Nothing. She had her own job, and I kind of compartmentalized this life out to her, away, until we go to Key West.
Yeah.
And then life there makes you have to be a part of it.
Gotcha.
Because that's all we really have. That's Army in that town. So there's the struggles of going to war and how I felt. I really tried to, as best I could at that earlier time, tell her like what I was doing and how I was feeling and the things that we did to people, and so that she would know who I was.
Yeah.
My daughter's born, and life starts to be hard.
Yeah.
Not harder, but
you see it in a different light.
Our family dynamic changes.
Yeah.
And so having kids was awesome.
Yeah.
So, but it was hard. Responsibility starts to change.
Yeah.
And legacy starts to fall in. Who am I going to be as a father to them? And I start worrying about, am I the right person to raise my kids?
Yeah.
And at this point, when my wife's pregnant, I really start to see me as a threat to my household.
Why is that?
Because of how much stuff have in my mind, how much I'm drinking, and I feel empty and dark inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I know what to do with threats.
Yeah.
And then in our line of work, threat is something that we eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start to, like, suicidal ideations and all this stuff start to happen where I'm like, I have zero value.
Yeah.
And if you can't provide value, you can't provide strength and security to your family, then what are you?
Yeah.
And so that's how that journey starts.
Yeah.
And starts amplifying. And I think of a lot of being time away as I start to search for things that are wrong with me. That's not my mind. So I start getting like testosterone tests. I start going to Thor 3 more. I'm like, what's going on with my body that's not me?
Yeah.
In a sense that there's something that's in me, that's some organ, some gland that's inside me that's causing me to feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
And not just maybe you need a break,
Yeah.
or maybe you need to get some real help. And maybe drinking is a problem. I want to just find everything else but those things. So,
how did you overcome all that? Right? How did you? Because it's hard, man. Because a lot of people, and you and I both know this, don't come out of that.
mm-hmm.
Right? Some of them are still in there right now, even though they're out the military. How were you able to successfully get out of that to the point where now you're, on stages sharing this story with other folks, hopefully trying to help them?
I think it's a commitment like you made to become a Green Beret.
Yeah.
To yourself and to your family. And to start that journey, because like I got help from other people my whole entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to recognize to get through this part of my life, I'm going to have to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to get it until I get to a point where I feel like I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time.
Yeah.
It's not 24 months, 12 months that you can drop your retirement
Mm-hmm.
and you think you're going to get better. It's significantly longer.
Yeah.
And you just like start that process. That's why I start to see like the behavioral health, the human performance and wellness,
Mm-hmm.
the preservation of the family and force initiatives are really starting at a younger age to see that those are things that I can go into like Thor 3 and start to learn the skills of how I really take care of me in a very holistic manner, that if I do this early enough, I think that my longevity on a team will be even longer.
Yeah.
Because I won't be broken, my brain won't be destroyed, my heart and soul won't be ripped out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to get maintenance done throughout my career rather than waiting to 18 years and you're like, I have this laundry list of TBIs, mental health problems, all my, problems with my, skeletal muscles, everything that I've been through. Like I gotta get fixed all at one last time. Like it's not possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just there's a few downfalls that I have that make it more apparent that I really need to get help.
Yeah. Which again, like we've all been there, and I think it's important to showcase to our brothers that hey, we're not above getting help, right? Especially us being at the highest level. Having been a team sergeant in the first one, it's like hey, it's okay to go get help.
Yeah.
Because that stigma is always there. Because you and I both know that stigma when we're E6 and E7s running and gunning, like we didn't even want to think about that, right? Until we hit rock bottom, and it's like shit. Let me go get help.
It's not wise to be too far gone.
Yeah, I agree.
You can take that route. Just know that coming out of that is going to take a significant amount of time and pain.
Mm-hmm.
That might not happen.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it, losing your life, because you didn't go sit down with someone.
Yeah.
And I see podcasts and things like this that I think are starting to offer men a voice and to tell their stories. And I wish so when I went to get my master's, I wrote my thesis on how PTSD was going to destroy SOF.
Yeah.
And my conclusion was that every time we went outside the wire, we never came back and talked about it.
No.
I think that for a lot, 90% of the problems that we have is that we didn't tell everyone about what we saw and how it made us feel. Mm-hmm. And I think if we can learn how to develop that communication, that sharing, that a lot of these things that we hold inside for us for so long can be dissipated.
Yeah.
And it's just tell me your story.
Yeah. Before
it becomes unknown.
Yeah.
Or something that you have no ability to express anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. There's power in sharing, man. I truly believe that. Now let's take it a little bit into the leadership realm, because you went through as an operator, you did work, got the help you needed, you got promoted to the next level. When it comes to being a team sergeant, what's Trevor Beeman's leadership philosophy? Like, how do you go about taking care of dudes, and how do you lead, essentially, right? Because we all know, because I always say, mission first, people always, right? It's like you take care of the people, they will in turn take care of the mission. What's your leadership philosophy?
Well, luckily enough, I never had to be a team sergeant.
You still led, though.
I recognized, so this is for my leadership kind of thing, is that I recognized that I would have chosen myself over the men. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I knew I had to go into a role that I wouldn't directly have to make a decision on life and death.
Yeah.
And I found that for me inside.
How did you know that was a thing? Like, how did you, because we all know as SF dudes that being the team sergeant is that ultimate prize. That's who we grew up admiring, and that's what we want to be like. So when you got to that point, like, how did you know, I guess it's extreme self-awareness. Like, how did you know that, hey, I can't take a team because I'm going to be, like, this is what's going to end up happening. Like, and how did you...
I was afraid of what would really happen. Yeah. Because the things that I did on a team, I knew would happen again. Yeah. I didn't want to be a team sergeant that was abusing drugs and drinking.
Because the guys were going to do it.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do what you do, right?
Right. And so I wasn't ready to tell people no, they can't. Yeah. I wasn't. So I think that my philosophy is that you have to do the basics, that you have to focus on the things that keep us alive, and find training that is difficult and relevant and builds a team together. And that's really it. Like there's so many things that we have to accomplish that we get lost in who we are. And I would want it to bring us together as a team so that we're working towards something together within that single team room or within that, squad or whatever. Is that you have to show exactly what you want, and you have to be able to express your intent. And your intent is whatever you can describe that allows someone else to be empowered. Yeah. So I'm going to say, I need this task done. However they do it needs to be acceptable. Because if you start micromanaging things, you won't be able to have a whole view of everyone and give the love to every guy on that team. Because if you're like, we're going to a range and I'm just going to be on the Bravos and just be on them and just be like, here's what I need to be ready. This is what we're going to like, determining learning objectives, task condition standard. That's it.
Yeah.
And then if they don't follow that, and then you evaluate them as such.
Yeah.
And just be true. Just, every NCO writes their own NCR.
Yes, I agree.
Not like I don't write my own.
Yeah, but
I write it over the year of the things that I do and I don't do.
I agree.
And it's that simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, and it's not a personal attack. This is like emotional things and valuations need to be taken out.
Yeah.
And just critical, and like my girl Kim Scott, just be radically candid with people and just tell them exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And not have cliques or have certain people that you mesh well with, and that's the only people we talk to. We're going to keep this person as the black sheep, and it's just that those type of actions erode teams.
Yeah, I agree.
And so everybody, even if they are not having problems or going through things, everybody needs counseling. Everybody needs mentorship.
Yeah.
Take that time to really do those things, because that's how the younger kids are going to grow into great leaders.
Yeah.
Is because someone shows them how to do it. We don't know any of this stuff, how to do it, what's right. But like Jeff said, if you do what I do, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And I like sit down, conversate with guys about other things outside the Army, how to discover new skills and new things and new adventures and new things that drive a fire in you that drove you to become a Green Beret.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have fire in you? Because this job is only for so long.
Yeah.
This career is for so long. And if you don't grow out of this very, very small portion of your life, like I wouldn't want to be gapped from 20 to 43. I'm not gonna be there forever.
Yeah.
And so we have to help guys start to build up out of that, because learning how to be a good team guy only takes about 36 months. And guys get complacent and they don't want to do any like career building, any key development time. They don't want to learn how to be a better instructor. They don't want to leave. They don't want to PCS. They don't want to go to a new command. And like all of those things should be developed within the guys, so that they start to gain an understanding about how they can be important in their next part of their Army career, rather than saying I only have value if I'm an ODA team, on a team start or on a team.
Yes.
That's the only value I have. Like, that's got to be stripped the fucking way.
Yeah.
Because that's not true.
I agree.
And then like going into other places and being like, you are smart, you're motivated, you show up and perform. That's beyond 95% of the Army.
Yeah.
And that's why you're a Green Beret.
Yeah.
Like, do you have the confidence to go talk to an ambassador and know what the fuck you're talking about? Understand what the State Department is. Understand what Ground Branch and CIA and all those, and how to do targeting.
Yeah.
Like, you don't learn that from being on a team.
No.
You have to leave. And so I think that leaving and learning to be good at your next job is so important. That's why, like, I don't want to work in S3, or I don't want to be a first sergeant. But learning those Army skills and be like, all right, so I can't be on an ODA, but I'm going to be the best first sergeant ever.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to learn regulations. I'm going to learn how to get guys promoted. I'm going to learn guys so that when they have a family problem and they can't PCS because of EFMP, that I know how to fight HRC for these guys. Like, that's empowerment. That's power. Like, that is so important that you can. I mean, I helped the guy not have to move his family to Fort Gordon because his kids wouldn't have had child care. And I got him to stay here, and I fought, and I did that. And like, you're changing lives, and like, that's what being an NCO is about, right? On an ODA, we changed lives of foreign people's lives, and now you can actually change the lives of Americans.
Yeah,
and like, that's amazing.
it is.
And put time in learning how to be good at that.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Now, leading up to this point, right, you're going through the gambits and you're going through the Green Beret experience.
Yeah.
Any regrets? Like, has anything started to settle in? Like, man, like I should have approached this Green Beret thing from a different angle. Maybe I should not have done it. Are you having any life regrets at this point? Or are you more like, hey, it is what it is? Everything happens for a reason. Like, as you sit right here, right now, looking back at things, like, any regrets at all?
I think a regret is the worst thing in life. Yeah. So I tend to believe that I made my own path.
Yeah.
That no one else chose my journey. It was mine and mine alone. And I just didn't hastily make decisions with my life and my career. But I actually sat down, made goals. This is what I want to do. This is what's best for me, my career, my family. And so I don't think that, like, other than going to combat, which is, we were like, it's like, there's days I regret going. And other days that I absolutely thought it is the greatest thing I could have ever done with my life. And even just joining the Army, like, it changed me. And that's hard. But I think that if you put time into recognizing what you've done, and so that you kind of put some time into yourself before you get out, or even an ETS or stuff like that, it's maybe not as difficult on you. So no, I don't really have any regrets, but it's hard on family. I think there needs to be more recognition on the spouses than there are. Like, my wife absolutely deserves to have a Purple Heart. For the shit that she's had. Hold on to her, take care of me, and with zero and little and no recognition.
Now, before we transition to the Beyond the Beret aspect of this, holistically, what advice would you give to the 18, 19-year-old Trevor Beeman from born in South Bend, lived in Chicago, went through the experience with the stepdad, joined the military? Like, what life advice would you give to that young man that's currently going through the same shit that you went through and is trying to figure out what to do, what his purpose is in life? Like, what advice would you give to those? Because there's somebody else out there that's going through a similar experience. You're just a couple of years ahead of them.
So I can't transport my experiences into another person. So each person has to live their life. You have to make mistakes. We just hope that they're not so grave that you have to live with them for the rest of your life. You must get in trouble. You must date a girl and fall out of love with her and fall in love with another girl. You must live life as hard as you possibly can. You have to spend time outside. You have to learn how to talk to people. You have to spend time in learning about other people's experiences and where people come from. I can't live your life. But having the ability to see that what's happening right now isn't what a year looks like. I understand that and people need to understand that right now could be the worst day of your life.
Yeah.
But to recognize that tomorrow may not be as bad.
Yeah.
And it's worth living for.
Yeah.
That you can get out of where you're at. You have the means, the power, even if it means asking for help.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, man. I like that. Now, beyond the beret aspect of it, I know you're still in, but you are getting into public speaking. Like, what drove that decision, and where are you trying to take it?
So we have to go back 4 years.
Sure.
Right? So when I was in Key West, I was committed to a psych ward in Panama City Beach. And it's like a 3-4 track program where it's like PTSD, TBI, Alcoholics Anonymous, substance abuse, all this stuff. And while I was there, I was in a veterans group for cognitive behavioral therapy, and there was 2 gentlemen that were there with me, and I would tell my story kind of like I'm telling you, and the things that I've been through, and war and childhood. And one guy who was in the Navy, he's about 60, going through this program, he was raped on his first ship by another man. And then another gentleman was sexually abused as a child as well. And both of them told me that they've never told anybody about what they've been through in their life. And for me to have the courage to talk about the things that I'd been through in their life allowed them to finally speak the words of what they had been through. And I felt as if a jail cell had been removed from these guys' shoulders, that they were no longer they no longer had this horror in their body holding on to them anymore. By them finally saying that this is what I went through, it no longer owned them in their life. And at that moment, I knew that the power of what I was saying and how I said it changed people's lives. And from that moment, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write, I'm going to talk to everyone about how I feel, and I really don't care what anybody thinks. Because I know that the way I say it and the things that I've been through, the things that I've accomplished, like those notorieties of being like of this stuff, they're like, Green Berets don't talk like that, and they don't share these things, and you're doing that. And so that has really, we talked about like how to develop that fire in you to accomplish something. And so I took that fire that drove me to go to SFAS and be the best Green Beret possible, to be a combat diver and all those things, into this next part of my life where I can see I've grown out of being a soldier, a Green Beret, a veteran, a warrior. All that stuff is gone. As now I start to see like I can empower people through a message in my voice and show up and perform. Because going to Portland and doing this talk, I'm gonna outwork everybody that goes on the stage, because I don't want to let other people down. People are giving me a chance, and I want to be the best I can. Because what I have to say means something. My story will impact people's lives, but at the same time, it's just not my story, right? Everyone has a story that they should share, and people are going to listen. And that's how I want people to really embody. And there are, different mental health approaches that I think offer a lot of success and a lot of easing of pain.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk more about that after I get out of the Army.
Mm-hmm.
But the use of ketamine and this stellate ganglion block and those types of tools have really helped move along in the process of trauma and growing. But in the reality of all of those tools and things like that, like, you have to self-cope.
Yeah.
You have to be able to use your own mind and body to get over the things that are tormenting you.
Yeah.
And it's not just drugs, and it's not just going and getting shots in your neck. It's how do you deal with life when it gets hard? Because the SEER school dealing with life is not coping.
No.
It's deflecting.
Yeah.
And it keeps you quiet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't allow you to heal. Those are things to bring you back home.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not things to get you safe
Yeah.
and better at home.
I agree.
At all.
I agree. Yeah, that's an awesome way to put it, man. So where can people find you if they want to invite you to come out and speak or any of that stuff? Like, how can they get a hold of you?
So, I mean, this is the way beginnings of my career and this stuff, but I have trevorbeeman.org that you can look at, and then I'm on Instagram at Trevor A. Beeman.
Yeah.
It's not hard. You go on to TEDx Portland or TEDx Google, YouTube, and all that stuff. Like, there's a beautiful 17-minute video of me talking about getting better and things. So it's not. I don't think it's super difficult to find me or anything like that. But I'm more than welcome to reach out, send me emails or anything like that if there's any questions or anything like that. I'm not a healthcare professional, though.
Yeah. Hey, we help through sharing, right? And what I'll do is I'll put all that information in the description below, guys. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming out and sharing this story. Because again, like whatever we can do to help this next generation, man, like I'm all about doing that. And I know for a fact somebody out there is going to get something from this. Just me sitting here, I got something from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I appreciate you having me here, Jay.
Yeah.
I fully believe that this is the way that we have to start communicating with the world about what we've been through, what people can expect if they're choosing a military route. I think it drops a lot of the unknowns.
Yeah.
And I think that brings anxiety down, and hopefully people can like reach back and be like, maybe I need to see this part. Maybe I'm in this part of my life right now. Maybe there's something there's a takeaway that I can use.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree 100%.
And it's there forever.
Yeah.
And so that having access to that much information and answers to questions from real people that aren't trying to sell you a bunch of bullshit is like, we're like gone through it, lived through it, and we want to help people navigate a very stressful, unknown part of their life that is really hard on them and their family. So I think that what you're doing and stuff is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more about all of our lives, more about what the Army's doing, what us as a whole are doing as people, and how that impacts us together. Yeah. Because we're only going to get better.
Yeah. Well, whenever you start your podcast, let me know. Which is right around the corner, man. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. And I always, call out other SF guys, and I'm like, just quit being a selfish son of a bitch, because all you're doing by holding on to your story and not sharing it is you're depriving the next generation of the truth, right, of what they can expect, and you're leaving it up to them to figure out. Essentially, is what is what you guys are doing, because that's what we had to do. We showed up and we figured it out, and nowadays we shouldn't have to, right? We can share the stories. That there's platforms out there to share all these wonderful stories that we go through. That is our lives, right? So yeah, if you want to come on, man, just let me know. You guys know who I am and where I'm at. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.